Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to talk about whether it's better to buy or lease a car. Now me, I've never leased a car because I buy used Toyotas, used Lexuses, and drive them forever. I save a lot of money that way. There are times when leasing a car actually can be a better decision in certain circumstances. To give one example, if I have a customer that says, hey, I want to buy a Jaguar, I say, don't buy a Jaguar. But they say, oh, we really have to have a Jaguar. I say, well, then lease one, don't buy it. You lease a new one, you're not responsible for repairs. It's under warranty. So you don't have to worry about the Jaguar falling apart like they normally do as they age. And if you get a lemon, well, hey, you don't own the lemon, they do. You're just leasing it. Because I have had customers who leased Jaguars and some who bought Jaguars. And when you compared what the person who leased them paid for, say, 3 years versus someone who bought a Jaguar, and then after 3 years decided to trade the Jaguar in, they lost so many more thousands of dollars paying for it and then going for the low resale value on a trade-in than they would have if they would just lease the stupid thing in the first place. And of course, some of my customers that are doctors, lawyers, they're involved in businesses where the business leases the vehicle and they don't pay for it. It's a pre-tax write-off. So lease vehicles, they don't care. But if you want to lease a vehicle, of course, if it's a business expense, that's a completely different story. But say it's a personal one, there are advantages. One is that your monthly payment is less. Even though you're going to have that monthly payment forever if you keep leasing cars, your monthly payment's going to be less leasing a car. And number two, you'll never be upside down on a car. If you buy a car, a lot of times if you get rid of it, if it's 3 or 4 years old, it's upside down. You actually owe more money on the car than the car is worth. Well, since you never own a lease car, you don't have to worry about that. And of course, you're not going to have very much repair expense, if any at all, if you lease new vehicles. They're covered under warranty, and maybe you got to pay for oil changes. Sometimes those are even covered. But your repair expenses are going to be a lot less if you lease a car. And of course, you never have to deal with the immense hassle of selling a used car. Since you don't own it, you don't have to sell it when you're done with it. And that's a big deal. A lot of people can't stand dealing with selling a used car. And the last advantage is there's no loan approval needed in most cases. It's just monthly payments. You don't own the car, and if you don't pay, they'll just take it and lease it to somebody else. Now, as for a lot of the cons, to begin with, leases are often a devil in disguise. Most of them have mileage limits. So if you go over a certain amount of mileage a year, then you got to pay so much per mile, and that can add up over time. And secondly, some leases say they only allow for normal wear and tear. Well, what do they decide is normal and what isn't normal? So if you really wear the car out, say you take it out in the woods hunting or something and you bash the suspension up, fix it all when you trade it in, and you got to pay for all those fixes. Realize that. You can't bring them back a car where the wheels are falling off and think you're not going to end up paying for it. Now, if you're like me and you get a car and you keep it forever, it's a great advantage to buy rather than lease. Because if you buy a good car like a Toyota, you got this one that's 24 years old. Now, truthfully, I only paid $300 for it anyways used. But let's say you bought it brand new. Well, 26 years later, you're still driving that thing. Your payments were gone a long time ago, 20-something years ago. It's still going. You haven't paid anything. Of course, you're going to save money if you buy a good car versus lease one. And of course, if you own a car, then you have the option of selling it anytime you want. You don't have a tie-in, like I say you got a 3-4 year lease. Well, you're tied into a 3-4 year lease. You buy a car, you don't like it, especially if you buy a used car, you can sell it on. You don't have to deal with the long-term aspects of a long-term lease. And of course, if you own a car, there's no mileage limit each year. It's your car. You can drive wherever the heck you want. You don't get penalized for it. And of course, there's no restriction on appearance. If it's bashed in, you don't decide to get it painted, say a tree fell and bashed part of it, you can keep driving it that way as long as it passes your state inspection law. Some can't be too bashed up, but here in Texas, they can be pretty bashed up and still be able to drive them down the road. I had a customer with a Toyota who T-boned a pole, bent it like a U. It looked kind of like a sausage curved going down the road, but legally he was allowed to drive it. If you own a car and you do like me and buy a used one, say it's 4 or 5, 6 years old, it's depreciated a whole bunch. So you can get a car that money-wise, maybe it's depreciated anywhere from 40 to 60%, but it might still have 80 or 90% of its life left, like the ones I buy. So let's say you buy a car for 60% less than what the original cost was, but it's still got 80% of its life. You're making out like a gangbuster. You're only paying 40% of the price, and the car's still got 80% of its lifespan left. Now here I'll give you a real life example of the difference between leasing and buying. Let's say you had a 2014 Honda Accord, you put down $2,000 on a lease, and your payments would be about $200 a month. So over 36 months, that comes out to about $3,000 a year cost. Financed it at 2.5%, a monthly payment of about $400 a year. That ended up costing you about $3,600 a year. So you're actually saving $600 a year if you lease the vehicle. But of course you have to remember, when you're done with a lease, then you gotta lease another car. When you're done paying for the car, you own the car. And a car like a Honda Accord is generally a pretty good car. So let's say it lasted another 10 years. That's 10 years of a free car where you'd be leasing 10 years. And even if it was only $300 a month, that's 10 more years of $300 months instead of zero. And there's no way your repairs are going to add up to that on an Accord. They're too well made. So in this respect, leasing a car is kind of like leasing property. If you got a short-term situation, maybe you're only going to be living somewhere for a year or two, do you really want to deal with the hassle of buying a house or a condo and then having to sell it when you're gone? No, you'll probably just rent and then split and go someplace else and rent. But if you're like me and you stick around like a tree in the ground, I've been in this house for 41 years, you're much better off buying a car or buying a house than you are renting the thing. Leasing a car is basically renting a car. You're just not renting it by the day. You're renting it by whatever the contract is. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. So unless you're in a business like real estate, you're much better off buying a vehicle than leasing it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.